This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The Egyptian authorities reopened this morning the Rafah border crossing with the Gaza Strip, allowing some medical cases and dozens of stranded families holding Egyptian residency to leave the strip.
This is the first time the Rafah border crossing reopens since the Egyptian-sponsored cooling-off period between the Palestinian factions and Israel went into effect. On the other hand, Israel closed off all commercial border crossings with the Gaza Strip in response to what it said was a missile launched toward the western Negev inside Israel.
Moments after hearing his name read in the list of those who were allowed to leave the Gaza Strip for medical treatment in Egypt, Ahmed Shawish was transported to the Shifa Medical Center in Gaza after his health conditions deteriorated. Abu Shawish, who is suffering from a kidney failure, is among the nearly 50 exceptional medical cases that the Egyptian authorities allowed to leave the Gaza Strip to Egypt for medical treatment.
I expect from my brothers, the officials, to work and do everything in their power to open these border crossings and make sure they stay open and work to alleviate the burden of the citizens.
Dozens of families holding Egyptian citizenship and residency were transported during the night to the Rafah border crossing in preparation to cross to the Egyptian side of the borders. These families entered into the Gaza Strip to visit their relatives and friends after the border fence between Egypt and Gaza was destroyed. And after 5 months of suffering, each has his or her own story.
I have school to attend, and I have some general secondary exams to take. I have not seen my family for 5 months.
During the morning hours, some buses carrying travelers have left the Rafah border crossing and headed to Egypt. This is the first time the passage was reopened by the Egyptian Authority since the cooling-off period went into effect. The Palestinians believe that the reopening of the passage to travelers departing from Gaza is a step in the right direction. The Palestinians also hope that the Egyptian efforts will lead to the reopening of the passage quickly and on a permanent basis. This news comes despite the surfacing of some obstacles on the ground following the reclosure of all commercial border crossings with Gaza. For the second time, the Israeli authorities have closed all commercial border crossings with Gaza due to allegations that the Palestinian factions continue to launch missiles towards Israeli towns and settlements along the borders with the Gaza Strip. Hamas said the closures violates the cooling-off period. Samir Abu Shamaleh, Al Jazeera, Gaza, Palestine.
Is an Israeli attack on Iran imminent? A top Pentagon official told ABC News, that there is, quote, an increasing likelihood that Israel will carry out a strike on Iranian nuclear installations by the end of the year. There are also increasing allegations that Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has been the target of a recent American assassination plot. IBA's Eliwal Galenter has more.
It sounds like a chapter out of James Bond with a touch of Mission Impossible thrown in for good measure. Iran's former ambassador to Italy is claiming that Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was the target of an X-ray death plot when he attended a UN-sponsored global food summit in Rome in early June. He said that a day before Ahmadinejad's arrival, radiation meters installed in his room recorded powerful measurements 3 times the normal level. Iran's IRNA news agency said it was a plot by American agents. Meanwhile, a top Pentagon official says there is an increased likelihood of an Israeli raid against Iranian nuclear facilities before the end of the year, and that this may prompt a wave of Iranian retaliatory attacks against both Israeli and U.S. targets. According to an ABC News report, an unnamed senior Pentagon official said the likelihood of such an attack will rise as Iran approaches two red lines in Israel's view. The first is the point when Iran produces enough highly enriched uranium to develop a nuclear weapon, something that could happen in 2009 and perhaps even by the end of this year, according to U.S. and Israeli assessments. The red line, the officials said, is not when they get to that point, but before they get to that point. We are in the window of vulnerability. The second red line is Iran's acquisition of the SA-20 air defense system from Russia. The system would make an Israeli strike much more difficult, and if an offensive is being planned, it is likely to take place before that time, according to ABC. Again, quoting a senior Pentagon official, ABC reported that the large-scale Israeli Air Force exercise conducted in early June was, quote, not a rehearsal, but basic fundamental training for an attack on Iran. The Israeli Air Force has already conducted the basic exercise necessary to tell their senior leadership, we have the fundamentals down, the official said. He added that additional such drills were to be expected as a possible operation nears. Ellie Wogelanter, IBA News.
Sources in Lebanon say the prisoner exchange deal between Israel and Hezbollah will go into effect in approximately 1 week. This according to a report by a Kuwaiti news agency today. According to the report, the deal will be implemented in 2 stages. On the first day, Israel will transfer the bodies of dozens of Lebanese fighters killed in the Second Lebanon War. On the following day, kidnapped IDF reservists Ehud Goldwasser and Eldad Regev will be transferred to Israel in exchange for terrorist Samir Kuntar and 4 additional Lebanese prisoners. In related news, Hezbollah is already preparing celebrations for the return of Kuntar to Lebanon. According to Al Akbar newspaper, ceremonies will be held from Naqoura to Beirut. In other news, Balad MK Saeed Nafea petitioned the High Court of Justice today against a new law known as the Bishara Law. The law was nicknamed after former Balad MK Azmi Bishara, who repeatedly visited Lebanon and Syria prior to fleeing Israel in the midst of criminal allegations of treachery. The new legislation will now prohibit those who have visited enemy states from running for Knesset. According to Nafea, the law harms the rights of minorities. Earlier today, MK Jamal Zahalka, head of the Balad faction, told Army Radio that Arab Knesset members will continue to visit enemy countries if there is a political need. 1 of every 2 draft-age Israelis dodges army service. This, according to statistics presented today by the head of planning in the IDF Manpower Division, Colonel Tziki Sela. Sela added that over the coming years, the number of young men being drafted may decrease even further due to the rising number of draft exemptions and dropping birth rates.
The German-sponsored prisoner swap deal between Israel and Hezbollah has entered its final stages. Meanwhile, preparations are underway in Lebanon to celebrate the return of Lebanese veteran prisoner Samir Kuntar and 4 others who were captured during the July 2006 war. In addition, Israel is to return the remains of several Lebanese fighters who had fallen over the periods of time. The deal, which is expected to be completed within the next 10 days, will close one of the thorniest files between Israel and Lebanon.
The prisoners are our commitment, and they are God's accomplishment. And Samir Kuntar and his brothers will soon return to Lebanon.
This is what the Secretary General for Hezbollah confirmed in his latest speech, which comes in the context of the party's often repeated slogan, "We are a nation that doesn't leave their prisoners behind." The vast majority of the Israeli government approved a prisoner and remains swap deal with Hezbollah. According to the deal, Hezbollah will release 2 Israeli soldiers who were abducted in July 2006 in exchange for the release of all Lebanese prisoners, including Lebanon's veteran prisoner Samir Kuntar. In addition, Israel is to release some Palestinian prisoners. Following the abduction of 2 of its soldiers, Israel declared a destructive war on Lebanon, but failed to free the soldiers. After the failure of the war and through indirect negotiations, Hezbollah and Israel were able to reach a deal. It is expected expected that the prisoner swap deal will take a week to 10 days before it's completed, a deal that the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert believes will bring additional humility to Israel.
The release of Palestinian prisoners is a submission and an acknowledgement by Israel that the real battle is between all Arabs on one side and the Zionist enemy on the other, and this is in itself a defeat to Israel. Israel can't use the military force for everything. In the aftermath of the Israeli defeat in the July war, the resistance was able to extract Arab brides from the Israeli enemy.
By force and not by choice, Israel must close a thorny and chronic file with Lebanon, a file that is as old as the Arab-Israeli struggle. Meanwhile, observers believe that after Israel closes its file with Hezbollah, it may make preparations to give up the Shibah farms to the UN at the minimum level. Israel will also try to get rid of any reasons or justification that Hezbollah may use to carry out actions against it. Hezbollah is preparing to receive its prisoners in an achievement that seems to marginalize the role of the Lebanese government and the President of the Republic. In the opinion of knowledgeable sources, no conditions have been set forth to try and incorporate this achievement in the strengthening of the Lebanese state, which seems to be headed toward further division.
أهلا بكم من جديد.
The Arab Democratic Party denied harboring Syrian and Hezbollah armed groups on the Mussin Mountain. They called on the army to clarify this information to the public.
According to some media outlets, there are Syrian and Hezbollah armed groups in the Mussin Mountain in Tripoli, and there are ongoing Syrian-French negotiations for their withdrawal. This media hype has added to the already tense condition in the northern capital. The Arab Democratic Party has quickly dismissed this information and said it was a rumor.
Who says we're in need of Hezbollah fighters? If Hezbollah needs fighters against the Jews, then we'll send them some from here. What we have here is simply people defending their homes.
So is the Lebanese army patrolling, and is it capable of observing everything in this area and other areas?
Yes, everywhere. The Lebanese army is here. Go ask them who's committing the breaches. I just wish that the Lebanese army would issue a statement to spell things out and clarify public opinion.
Are you turning wanted people in?
We turn in whoever is wanted by the Lebanese government from the various groups.
Has there been any Syrian communication between Mr. Ali Aid or yourself to calm the situation in Tripoli?
My brother, I doubt if Mr. Aid even knows about this issue. There is no truth to this. None of it. This is false. Neither Syria nor Hezbollah have any relation to this, nor France. What? Next thing they'll say that the People's Republic of China is involved in the issue at the Mushin Mountain.
A tour around the neighborhoods and streets of Jabal Musin suggests that life is going back to normal, in spite of the fact that there is fear of clashes erupting again. A person walking through these areas will not see any signs of armament. There are only groups of young men congregating in particular areas of streets and neighborhoods. These groups are only equipped with walkie-talkies.
We only have one leader, and we are proud of him because he makes us raise our heads high. He is Ali Youssef Eid. Our other leader is Rafah Ali Youssef Eid. And our first and foremost leader is Bashar al-Assad. And here's the greatest, the father of resistance. Whoever likes this reality, good. Otherwise, leave this place. This is all we have to say.
The relationship between the Mussin Mountain and Al Tabena has been negatively affected. Disorder has continued, and each side takes a turn in instigating the other. This adds to the divide between the two sides, who claim that what is taking place between them is used for political reasons.
We hope for self-restraint, awareness, and consciousness towards them. At the end of the day, both of us want to live in the same country. This is our country. If it develops, it serves everyone, and if it fails, it falls on the heads of everyone.
The demand to achieve security in Tripoli is urgent, which gives the political sides a bargaining card to push in this or that direction.
Sherwin is a small Iraqi village 30 kilometers north of Mekdadiyah in Diyala province. This small village has a long story. The village of Shirween found itself confronting al-Qaeda fighters who wanted to annex it to what is known as the Islamic State of Iraq. When the residents of the village decided to resist, al-Qaeda issued a religious decree saying that they are apostates. During 3 months of battles, the village was destroyed and hundreds of its residents were killed. My colleague Majid Hamid, Al-Arabiya correspondent in Iraq, visited the village of Shirween and reported about the brutal battle that took place in this village. Welcome to a new episode of Manufacturing Death.
The areas that fall under the control of Al-Qaeda have a great deal of contradictions. After Al-Qaeda announced the establishment of the so-called Islamic State of Iraq, which include areas that accepted Al-Qaeda's presence either due to fear of retaliation or shared ideology. However, the village of Shirween, 30 kilometers north of Muqtadiyah in Diyala province, one of the most important strongholds of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, has a different story. This Sunni-dominated village, which lives on agriculture, refused to allow Al-Qaeda presence in their village. Several months ago, the village was subjected to attacks by Al-Qaeda fighters who were trying to expand the borders of their Islamic State in Diyala. The tribal elders decided to fight Al-Qaeda, and the battles lasted for 3 months. Al-Arabiya obtained video images showing Al-Qaeda fighters preparing to launch its latest attack on Shirween village using different kinds of weapons. After 2 days of fighting, Al-Qaeda managed to control the village because the tribal fighters ran out of ammunition.
They tried to enforce their control over this area. They attacked one area after the other in Diyala province. They would pacify one area and then go to the other. Truly, as a tribe, we heard about what happened in areas near us in Muqtadiyah. They humiliated tribal chiefs and honorable people. We heard that the so-called emirs said that there is no such thing as a tribal chiefs. Whoever calls himself a chief, they said, will be tied from the neck and hit with stones on his head. These kinds of things gave incentives to the tribes to take measures to protect themselves. The tribes have dignity and want to defend themselves from such insults and violations. We held a meeting and decided that we will not let these terrorists enter our areas and humiliate us like they did in other areas. The tribes agreed that each tribe would provide 25 to 30 armed and trained men to do what pleases God. We heard threats from them and that they will do this or that. They started to launch fights here and there. They want to take over this area because they want to humiliate its people.
عقب خروج إقليم كردستان العراق من مرحلة الاقتتال الداخلي أواخر تسعينيات القرن الماضي.
After internal fighting ended in the late 90s, a so-called democracy emerged in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. But 2 years since its establishment, this democracy remains at a standstill. Leaders in the Kurdistan region complain about the absence of an opposition, the monopolization of power by the 2 large political parties, and the prohibition of opposition groups outside the 2 main blocs.
After emerging from a whirlpool of internal fighting in the late 1990s, secular groups closely connected to the West took hold of the Kurdish government in Iraq. Everyone praised the political democracy that emerged, but since the fall of the former regime of Saddam Hussein and throughout the following years, this democracy has remained inactive, according to political observers. This democracy has not given birth to the voice of the other or the voice of political opposition. With all options equally possible, government insiders do not conceal their fear of political opposition.
في كردستان لا يوجد قانون باسم قانون الأحزاب أو المعارضة.
In Kurdistan, there is no law to protect the rights of opposition blocs or political parties.
توجد معارضة سياسية تحاول توضيح أماكن الخلل.
Everywhere in the world, there is a political opposition which sheds light on areas of error. No one attacks the headquarters of these blocs or shuns their members from governmental institutions if their bloc takes an opposing position to the government.
Prominent figures in the government commend this democracy, but they also believe that there are certain groups that need to be cut off before allowing for political opposition to exist.
لابد أن نعترف بأننا أيضا في المرحلة الأولى من الممارسة.
We have to admit that we are still in the preliminary stages of practicing democracy. We have not yet reached a democratic way of life, but we have at least begun this journey. An ideal democracy cannot be achieved anywhere in the world.
As for the Islamic blocs, which were heavily pressured by political forces, they settled for a symbolic participation in the government that does not represent their popularity. They are also still at risk of being shut down.
There are currently two blocs which constitute the government. They do not allow and have not prepared the proper ground for a real opposition to emerge outside of the two blocs. The existence of a real political opposition in Kurdistan is an essential element of democracy. It would benefit the government and the people at the same time.
Prominent political figures from inside and outside the government admit that while the Kurdish democracy is still an infant, it has not yet reached a level where there is room for an opposition.
Al Jazeera's bureau chief in Morocco has appeared in court in the capital Rabat on a government charge of willfully publishing false information. The case has been held over until Friday, but the defense team says the short adjournment doesn't give it enough time to prepare its case. From Morocco, Hashim Mahlabara reports.
Hassan al-Rashidi entering the court in the Moroccan capital Rabat, accompanied by his wife. He is facing charges of disseminating false information, and if convicted, he could be jailed for 1 year. It all started when Al Jazeera was covering clashes between the police and demonstrators in Sidi Ifni, a port city in the southwest of the kingdom. Al Jazeera quoted human rights activists who had claimed protesters had been killed. The government denied the claims. Al Jazeera ran that denial, but that wasn't enough. The government wants Al Jazeera to apologize. Al Jazeera says its coverage was balanced.
I did my job as a journalist, as a professional journalist. I told my story, I gave both sides, and I'm a little bit surprised, but at the end, I hope that my case take a normal voice, and I believe in Moroccan justice, and I'm innocent.
Al Jazeera's lawyers were hoping for a longer adjournment. They say 3 days won't be enough time to prepare their case.
The trial has been politicised. This was clear to us after the decision to give us only 3 days. There were cases which were given 3 months. Why should we be the exception? We called upon the judge to treat this case as an ordinary one, but his decision says the opposite.
Al Jazeera's satellite operations from Morocco have already been shut down, and Hassan al-Rashidi has been stripped of his press credentials. By allowing Al Jazeera to broadcast from Morocco some 4 years ago, the authorities were seen to be eager to project the image of a country which is leading the Arab world in democracy and the freedom of press. But it would now seem that Morocco is more and more impatient with Al Jazeera's coverage. Hashim al-Barra, Al Jazeera, Rabat.
Al Suarra, City of the Wind, is swept by the breeze of song for the 11th year by the art of the Gnawa and international cultural performances. Fans of the Gnawa Festival, which began its activities Thursday evening, are on a date with rich programming this year. The festival takes the traditions of Gnawa to international heights through combining traditional Gnawa songs with modern music. Nadia Almoud, Mohammed Nasri, and Nuruddin Amala prepared the following report.
The Gnawa Festival has been growing for 11 years. With every passing year, and thanks to many efforts, the festival has become a unique event, loyal to its original principles, namely openness and dialogue between cultures. With the festival, the radiance of Suarra has been spread to the world, with its beauty and magic, and the international artists and special guests that visit it.
The ambience is perfect. Coming to Suarra is a joy for my family and me. It is important to see different cultures coming together in one place. Morocco has an ancient culture, and it is a country which I love very much, and where I always receive a great welcome. On this occasion, I would like to express my gratitude to His Royal Highness Al-Hassan II, may he rest in peace, and my thanks to His Royal Highness Mohammed VI, whom I have known since childhood. It is an honor for me to be here.
The opening of the festival featured the Korean group Samanuri Mulka with the local group of Mu'alim Ba'alil. There was complete harmony between the two groups, representing one of the most beautiful images of coexistence and openness.
Really fantastic, you know.
I felt really good to come and join the Moroccan group. I'm very happy.
Like, you know, performance team, it was very nice.
The new element is the mix between Gnawa and Korean music. This has never happened before, and although we seem different, thanks to God, this new mix turned out really well. Thanks to God, everything was just perfect.
The many flavors of the Gnawa tradition blended with a variety of international musicians. It presented enchanting and unique performances to the visitors of Suarra as it celebrates its yearly festival.
الصويرة خلال مهرجان غناوة هي معجزة متواصلة مليئة بأجواء التسامح.
Suarra, during the Gnawa festival, is an ongoing miracle, filled with an atmosphere of understanding, celebration, and a high quality of various musical styles.
مهرجان غناوة بالصويرة هو المغرب بجميع ألوانه. المغرب بكل أصواته.
The Gnawa Festival in Suarra is Morocco in all its colors, all its voices, its wealth that it shares with others, and the respect for the cultures of others.
The festival continues with rich programming, instilling the principles of coexistence and openness. It shows the value of this tradition, which will continue to impress people with the most beautiful music that moves the heart.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.